the board. And then behind that, I put little dossiers of people who chose to turn things in. Okay, so let's start with Bruce. Not Bruce.
Start with the
Bruce. Yeah.
Oh, they're there.
He's here,
Okay.
yes.
Oh,
Here.
oh, okay. Oh.
I may not have made enough. Does anyone else need one of these, Tom?
Oh,
Agendas too. Yeah. One more? Okay, wait. Tom, did you get this? Okay. Here, I'll pass this. Wait. Who's that going to? Stag? Okay. Okay, Tom. Okay, here you go. Okay. Okay, all right. Well, I can't believe we're all in the same room.
Yeah.
Gosh. And Jess said that this is her first in-person meeting because last we met was in January of 2020. So it's been a long time. Okay. Just name, serial number, you know.
My name is Bruce Lessinger. I'm new. This is my first meeting.
Yes.
I became acquainted with what's going on from a conservancy standpoint as a result of our homeowners association working on conserving our common areas in the King Creek Valley. And it's been a multi-year process, happening in area with wonderful guys. We got our bond approved recently, and we're now in the process of doing what I'm hoping to do, serial perfection of the surveys and titles and whatnot, so that we can bring our project to completion.
That's great. Congratulations. Okay. We're gonna do this introduction first, and then we're gonna start the meeting. So I'll do the agenda approval and all that in just a minute. Jess.
Hi everyone, my name is Jess Lagus. I'm the Farmland Production Director at Southern Appalachian Highlands Conservancy, one of the land use partners that works closely.
Good. Bob.
I'm Bob Gale. I have a business called Restore Flora, Gale Botanical Consultant. And I worked with them for 25 years as a forest ecologist and have been on this board since its inception.
Yep. Yep.
Hi, I'm Nancy Edgerton. I am also on the board, although this is my second meeting. And I have a long history of volunteering in the Southern Appalachian Highlands Conservancy, 12 years on the board, 3 as president.
Yeah. Yeah. Stag.
Stag Newman joined in May, and background actually telecommunications technology. So I started working with the county on the broadband working group as the techie geek, and got in conservation really because my neighbors, the Cogmars, thank God, sold their property to the state to use state parks. So I'm very interested in conserving a lot more land in the county, particularly out in that area to preserve viewshed and all. And invitation, because we've been doing so much volunteer work, I have permission to supervisor to take people on hikes there. So if anybody wants to see the state park, where it's opened up, just give me a
Good. Good.
My name is Elijah Charette. I serve with AmeriCorps at Riverlink. I work in the land program with Hannah. I run a volunteer program and help out monitoring some of our conservation easements.
Thank you.
Anna Coates, Riverlink's land resource manager. It's a Riverlink partner organization. Happy to be here.
Good. Okay. And we have a special guest.
I'm Nancy Hutchins. My husband is Greg, who was your chair.
Right.
How long?
Well, let's see. Albert left in 2013. So 11 years.
Is that when you
Yeah.
came on?
Yeah.
Well, I was looking up. I have no idea. All I know is I remember him doing these, forever, and then thinking when his dad passed in 2012.
Yes.
His grandfather's farm is in Leicester, kind of in the Turkey Creek area. I don't know. I know we had the beautiful. I'm still living there. He passed in July.
Yeah. And we miss him.
Had a battle with ALS.
Yeah.
And we were able to use that house because his mom had put a lift in it. We actually live in the Grove Park area in a 100-year-old home, but anyway, so I'm staying out here for now. Our
You are
son's
for now,
still
okay.
living at the other house. I'm unfortunately battling cancer now,
Yeah.
so.
You're fighting your own battles.
Yes, I
That's
know,
right.
but he loved this, work that he did, and
Well, for those of us, the old timers who remember 2000 and at least maybe 2004 through 2013, when Albert Sneed was our chair. Lang, did you know Albert?
I didn't.
Okay, all right, and okay. Well, then Greg was just this calm, it was like, the yin and yang. And when Greg took over, it was like everyone's blood pressure went down. We loved Albert. I mean, Albert taught us a lot. But Greg was not Albert, or Albert was not Greg. So I'm so
handled
glad.
everything with such smoothness. And
Well,
if I can share one little story,
Yes,
I was
yes.
telling Ariel, I think one of the last things, he was diagnosed officially March 9th, a year ago.
Right.
But we knew by the end of January. That's what it was. Our daughter is a young doctor, actually, ironically, doing a critical care fellowship. So it was all right in there. And she said, the neurologist here wouldn't give the official diagnosis. We had to go to Wake. But at the end of March, Emma Grace, our youngest of 5, was home at spring break, I guess. And he was just determined he was going to move some hay that day. And he was at the point he still was able, but, really stumbling up and tripping. I was begging him to use a cane. The doctor had said, now don't go get on a ladder and try to change a light bulb. I said, how about getting a silo and try to shut the silo? Because he was still climbing that silo some, and I'd just be like, he said, well, I can lean back on the wall. It's actually easier than the steps at home. But he got Emma Grace and a tractor and a trailer, and they went over to the tobacco barn and loaded it up with hay with me driving out the whole way. I just didn't want him to fall, but he looked at me later when they moved it, and they just had to park it. They didn't have to unload it, thank goodness. But she's 25, by the way. She was home on spring break from teaching, but he looked at me and he said, I'm glad I did that, honey, because that is the last time I will ever do that. And my daughter had said, Mom, he wants to do what he can do, the way he does it, as long as he can do it. And so on the other hand, he also wore a suit to work every day, even from me helping him get dressed in, the wheelchair out here and taking him in until December 15th was the last day I took him to the office. And he was in a suit. So that just gives you, I think you all probably saw him.
Well, I was going to ask you
if
he was in the silo in his suit.
Now that's it. He either was in a suit with a tie. People really don't do that much anymore. Or he was in his farm clothes. There wasn't much in between.
I know. Casual dress.
Khakis, maybe Patagonia khakis, and Crocs were if we were doing something else. But that was his love.
We miss him, and although he was an absolutely awesome lawyer, we saw him in a different light, because as soon as we start talking land and tractors, and he was, when his uncle Gary died, I mean, that was really, Gary Hutchins was one of our contributors. That was really tough on all of us, but we miss him. And I, like I said, I'm so glad that I saw you at the reception and you wanted to come visit with us.
Well, I had already looked. I still have his phone and haven't had to turn, so I'm robbing contacts off of it a little bit. So I had, because you had left a long message, it got to where I had to, play everything for him. At the end, he could not work his phone. Anything. So sad, but when people would leave a message, sometimes I would try to get the phone, because I knew eventually a lot of his old fraternity brothers were calling that we don't ever see, and I was trying to rob their numbers too, and several of them came to the service, and they actually did a memorial service this past weekend. It would have been his 40th reunion at Wake Forest. And the family was invited, but we were participating in an ALS fundraiser run in Raleigh, where 2 of our children live. And so that was, we had Team Greg t-shirts. And
Yeah.
so that, we have had a lot of good things. And then I'll
Yes.
just throw in, he was very involved in scouting. and
Yes. Oh,
camping
yeah.
with Boone. So our sons were all Eagle, and they created a Greg Hutchins Spirit of the Eagle Award that will be given every year to one Eagle Scout within the Eagle class. So that was really special honor that we.
Well, I'll
I
tell
was
them.
honored to have him
What?
have me come, because my son was in Scouts, and I gave them a whole presentation, workshop on invasive plant removal in their own.
In our neighborhood, because our
Yeah.
youngest son's Eagle project was to do a little bridge down there in the Parkway ravine right off the Charlotte Street, where it's just kind of an
Well, he
overgrowth.
can come to my house, if you want invasive species. When I'm trying to remember that there was, I know, it was back at you at the reception or at the actual service. Those of you who weren't there, literally about a third of the congregation stood up and recited the Boy Scout, whatever it is.
Yeah, the scout. So the two people that spoke, Pete Sprague, his brother-in-law's married to his sister, Leslie, is actually responsible for us meeting because he got me to work out at scout camp that year. And then Sims Riggin, his best friend from Wake Forest, who we stay close to. And he's the one, and they're both Eagle Scouts as well. And Sims had everybody. Normally at an Eagle ceremony, you ask all Eagles to come forward and do that. So he just asked for anybody that was connected to scouting at all. And so that was,
that was very moving. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Lane.
Hey, everybody, I'm Lane Hornthal. I'm the co-executive director of Eco Foresters. We're a professional forestry nonprofit based in Asheville. We're private landowners, land trusts, anyone with forests that needs assistance. We do a lot of education around the amazing resource that we have and how we keep it on the landscape to keep it healthy.
Hi everyone, my name is Athena. I'm the Farmland Conservation Program Coordinator. I work with Ariel, we do conservation easements mostly amongst others. So.
Hi, I'm Tom Fossil, I'm Executive Director at Southern Carolina, my trust based.
Good, thank you.
I'm Angelica Tyler. I work with the county's communications and public engagement team, and I run our platform that streams all of our board meetings called engage.montgomerycounty.org.
Good, thank you.
I'm Ariel Zeit. I'm the Farmland Preservation Manager at Montgomery County Soil and Water. I am with UPNI. We're the 4 point people here for the county. And we manage our Farmland Preservation Program, which is a variety of different programs, but with the main focus on conservation, holding conservation easements.
I'm Bob Turner. I'm Vice Chair of this board, and I have to say, Mrs. Hutchins, you are truly an honored guest here today. Thank you so much for coming. So I write a column for Mother Earth News, if y'all know that hippie magazine from 7, still around, and I have a small farm
in the world too.
In the world.
Yeah. He's our foodie. He's the person who talks about food all the time.
Road agriculture.
Yes, okay. All right. Well, anyone have got any questions for anyone at the table? Okay. All right, let's get the meeting, let's call to order. And first of all, if we could take a look at I've just noticed you actually put it as a number, and that is the conflict of interest issue. If anybody has a conflict of interest on any project that we're talking about today, I'd like you to please announce that and maybe even leave the room. We'll see how things go. We've only had that happen once or twice in the last several years. So does anyone have any conflict of interest even being here today? I don't think so, because we don't even know what projects are on the board. Okay, so, and then approval of our agenda. And that is the agenda for today. And does everyone have a copy? Yes, Bob.
Yeah, I just wanted, if you would just add at the end, Robert and I can give a report on the Passive Parks Recreation Committee. We just voted yesterday on.
Excellent. Yes, we would like to hear about that. So let's throw that in as a 7A. Okay, and that's open Yeah, that's open space. Great, okay, good. Anything else? Yes, Dave?
It needs to be formally on the agenda, but just moving forward with the plans for the presentations to the community groups.
That can be, let's talk about that under discussions. I saw that email. Okay, under 8, we're gonna talk about presentations to different groups in the county.
I've also updated the agenda.
Ah,
just
okay,
in
fine.
case.
Thank you very much, okay. I have a pen, so that's, yeah, okay. All right, okay. So do I have a motion to accept the agenda?
Make a motion.
Bob, second? Stay, okay. Any negatives? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye, okay, and we've got that one done. Okay, let's take a look. Did anyone have any comments about our minutes from last month? Okay, if we can have a motion to accept that. Thank you, Nancy.
Second.
Bob? Okay, good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we've accepted that. Okay, do we have anyone, members of the public besides our very own Nancy Hutchins? Does anyone online? Angela? Nope, okay, good. All right, so public comment. We have no one today, good. And then here we go, let's talk about the informational presentation, okay?
Okay, so next on the agenda is just if any land conservation advisory, or sorry, land conservation agencies have an update on projects.
Yeah, we'll do that, yeah, but is there anything, okay, so that's what you put under 6, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so anything from Riverlink?
Nothing really conservation easement wise, but I'll give a little update on our Gateway Park project. We've done some extensive invasive removal. If you guys drive by on Riverside Drive right next to FBO, you'll see the cleared lot. That's our parcel that's going to become a park. So we're really excited for our initial removal there. And just a fun fact, well, kind of a sad fact, I guess. When we were doing the invasive removal, the guys we were working with found and removed, in addition to the invasives, 113,140 pounds of concrete from the site. So yeah, we really uncovered a lot when we did this clearing out, but we're really excited to move on to the actual planning and design phase for the park, with hoping to open it by late summer, early fall next year. So that's kind of my update.
Anna, where is that again?
So you on Riverside Drive,
yeah.
Pearson Bridge, there's French Broad Outfitters right on the other side of Pearson Bridge, and it's just this little empty lot. There's the Getaway Bar on the other side.
Okay, all right,
yeah,
I know where we are.
So yeah, I encourage you guys to drive out there if you're in the area and check it out. We just spread some like annual ryegrass to cover the bare soil. So yeah.
Good,
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, Jess?
We don't have any new easement closings recently, but I just heard, not to steal the thunder for the passive rec board, but our deed review project was funded with bond funds, and their officials are busy with further fundraising for that. So.
Okay, we'll talk about that when Bob give the 2 Bobs. Okay, Tom, anything from Conserve Carolina?
Yeah, thanks for the heads up from Bob Gale. Our partner Camp Greer, which is our partner on the conservation of the Camp Woodson project in Fairview. Most of what Camp Greer asked for has been funded, which is going to be a really complicated community forest that we're establishing there on the ground. And then Camp Greer is operating the Works project, which is really innovative vocational education program in the center of that community forest. So that's the good news. The unfortunate news is Agricultural Development Farm Preservation Trust Fund declined to fund our project at the Light Center.
Really?
Yeah, that was a bummer. Having an email conversation with Jess about that. ADFP removed the cap, so they put a lot of money into fewer projects. They had a cap of $500,000, and so Light Center, excellent soils, straightforward, supporting a local cattle farmer. 23-year-old Farley. So been having a conversation very open about potential gap filling.
Other funding sources, yeah.
And I don't think that bodes well for 2 other projects that we have in the broader focused area for LCAB, and that's a project that we call Baylor, working with Minor Park Baylor. It's a forest farming project, maybe something I haven't really looked at before, but I think it's an exciting concept to explore and see what happens. And then Tempest Renatus, which is another unconventional farming project that seems to come my way. It's an equestrian facility that focuses on more education and outreach. They do therapeutic riding. They have corporate events. And a keystone element is preserving the bloodline of the Lipizzaner stallions. And I don't know, some of you, I see some nodding, and some of you may know the Lipizzaner stallions. They've got 40 head, and it's to help preserve the bloodline. Because, there's some concern about the genetic diversity of that breed petering out or not remaining vibrant.
And where's that?
It is in Broad River. It's easy to get to. It's actually, if anyone wants to go there, I'll be presenting it after I work this out with the team. But it's right there on Highway 9. And so their project actually, I promise I'm going to start presenting it now. But, just a teaser. They're right there on Highway 9, so they've got Nisha on the city byway. It's right where Flat Creek enters the Rocky Broad River. And so Lower Flat Creek Road. If you're on Highway 9 heading for Black Mountain or vice versa, headed toward Hendersonville, it's at the corner of Lower Flat Creek Road.
Excellent. All right.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my opinion.
But you are gonna see whether we can find some additional money for the one that was turned down.
Right, and so with direction from the team, I got up with Jess, and now I'll be getting up with NRCS, probably find out what the prospects are, to make sure that there's going to be some federal funding for these projects, and we'll get that back to the material.
Okay, good. Thank you, Tom.
Okay.
And I can give a quick update. Been talking with a lot of the land trust agencies to start putting together like a schedule for the next year on presentations of when you, as board members, will expect new projects to come. Yeah. And so I've included like a tentative schedule in the back of your board packet you're welcome to look at. The numbers are not set in stone. They're just kind of rough estimates and 4 placeholders depending on the one. So I want to make sure you don't get locked in on those numbers yet. And this is also just for editing based on if there's need for changes from either Southern Cal or North Carolina. So, but our hope, the past couple of years we've had some I guess need for like last minute special meetings towards the end of our fiscal year. So our hope is that we make April the last meeting of the fiscal year for board presentations. So that gives us the proper amount of time to take it to the commissioners before the last allowed request before the end of the budget year. So so just wanted to put this out there so you know we're getting things organized. The Chuck Schwartz one in February, it doesn't have a figure, but we're just awaiting figures. So it's not a free project. It is going to have a request associated. And so yeah, this is our tentative schedule as of now. So we'll be seeing a lot of good projects coming our way.
Any questions?
Yeah, you have the TC request amount, EP question.
Yes, transaction costs request. So that'll be for funding associated with actually completing the easement project. And then easement purchase, that's actual acquisition costs, paying the landowner percentage.
Okay. You're trying to learn the jargon.
No, it's cool. I was, yeah.
Is the EP the gross amount, including the deduction?
No.
Or just the cash?
It's just that it would just be, this would be a portion of the cash paid to the landowner at closing. So most of the projects would have other grant funds matched to this amount, as well as the landowner's like charitable donation.
Okay. So that's the funds that we would be approving?
This would be the potential request coming to LCAB and then going to the commissioners. And it could be, depending on where we are in the fiscal year, it could be, most of the transaction costs would be coming from our annual allocated amount from this budget year, and then easement purchase would most likely be coming from bond funds. So.
Okay. Yeah, I guess if it's easy, it'd be helpful to add a column of additional funds or whatever, because that would give us some idea of the amount of leverage.
And that'll happen absolutely in the actual presentation and in the application when they submit it. So we're just trying to keep the numbers simple here so that we know kind of what to report on that's coming down the line. But yes, you will definitely see that. All right, that's all I have on that. Just wanted to kind of.
You want to talk about what's going on in your world?
Yeah, in our world, we have our Ag Advisory Board is bringing 3 bond projects to the commissioners for the October 1st meeting. And we've already requested transaction costs on those 3 projects. And I think I might have mentioned about them last meeting, but we've gotten those appraisals completed, and we'll be asking for the easement purchase. And also, I guess another big announcement is that our program applied for what's called a state grant last fall for what's called the Agricultural Growth Zone. It's through the North Carolina Department of Ag ADFT program, and we were awarded, we just got the award letter last week, around 1.9, almost 2 million to be used for Buncombe County Farmland Preservation Program to do conservation easement work in our conservation focus areas. So one requirement of that was that we had to match, it was a 1-to-1 request. So we requested 2 million, we said we would be able to match 2 million of bond funds to be able to have 4 million to use in those areas. So that has been approved, and in the next month or so, we'll be going to the commissioners to allocate that 2 million of match from the bond. This was all included on those bond projections that you guys saw last month.
Yeah.
But that's really exciting. It'll help us be able to not have to continually write grant applications to secure matching funds, and we're hoping it will allow us to preserve some puzzle piece projects that might not rank well, at the annual grant applications, but are really important in these communities. So that's just a general update from Ag and Land Resources. Yeah, Lovely, do you have anything?
The projects you're using bond funds for the steep review?
No, so Deep Review is with Southern Appalachia. But our 3 projects that we're coming in 2 weeks for will be Kestrel Herb Farm, which is also Lady Luck Flower Farm, previously Lady Luck Flower Farm out in Sandy Mush. It's about 70 acres. It's a working herb production and still some flower production. And then Sandy Holler Farm, phase 2 of that project, is about 150 acres out in Sandy Much. They did their first phase of the project of their farm with Southern App. And so that is the other piece that we'll be asking for. That is a really well-known Christmas tree farm in the area. They also do berries and pumpkins and fiber arts and all that. And then the last one we'll be requesting for is the Battle Forest, which is out in the Candler area, about 167 acres of a working forest. With amazing viewshed protection, ridgeline protection with Haywood County water quality protection. Yeah.
That's great to see your bond funds used for projects.
Yes.
Like that. That's awesome. Will we be coming back to the board for other funds for surveys and all that kind of stuff? Or
for those 3 projects, we went to the board in July and requested transaction costs for them already. So they've already
to the Ag Board.
Yeah.
the Ag Board.
Yes.
Okay.
All of our projects go with Ag Board.
Yeah.
But we went to the commissioners on those. So Ag Board approved those 3 projects in, I guess, late June, early July. And then we went already to the commissioners for transaction costs. So they already have transaction costs allocated, and now we have done an appraisal that we're doing. now the easement purchase request, so.
Okay.
Ariel, is the Battle Forest, is that a working forest at Christmas Tree Farm, or is that other?
It's not a Christmas tree farm, he calls it a tree farm, but it's just a managed forest. But yeah, I'll have to check in to see if he has an updated, forest management plan. I believe he's under the PUD, forestry structure, yes.
The Christmas tree farm is the Sandy Holler farm.
Yes.
Yeah, Christmas trees are standing.
Alice,
Yeah.
yeah.
One of the things I wanted to ask, and the fact that Tom's here brings it to my attention, is there any way that we could get a preview before a presentation is made to the board? I'm just thinking of some of the presentations you've given in the past are so detailed and so wonderful. And, but it takes time, and then we're trying to think of questions like in real time.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to be able to see a Tom Fanslow packet before he gives it.
Well, that is what is required, is now, we've made the updates.
Okay.
We're requiring, the land trust, point people to submit it a week before the actual board meeting.
Excellent.
It will be in the shared LCAB folder.
Okay.
And so it'll live there, and you'll have, links for the evaluation and other, general evaluation criteria. So you should have the chance to have a week to look at it before the actual board meeting.
That's excellent.
And then the actual, I'm guessing the presentation and the application packet will be in there. Is that what we talked about?
Definitely the packet.
Definitely the packet, and then
the presentation as well, if you can get that to us a week before the actual presentation, we can upload that.
and that's our goal with, creating this schedule, is that everyone knows when, once we finalize the schedule, we'll put in on that spreadsheet when their application materials are due to us, and then we'll put them in on the shared folder.
Okay.
And blast out an email reminding you guys. That's
great. Any questions for Avni or Ariel? All right. Those of us who, again, I go back to the old timers that have been on the board for a long time. The way this is progressing, the quality of the work that Soil and Water is doing, and as a byproduct, this particular board is doing is just great. Things are much more organized. They're much more transparent. And I know that the public is watching us closer than they ever have. And, a lot of that is because of the open bond issue. But other than that, too, it's become a national priority and a state priority to keep our lands open and our farms open. And that is now, people are paying attention to that. So it's nice. And I'm really proud to be on this board, and I hope you are too. So, okay, next is the Bob and Bob Show. And this is about, for you new members, we have 3 people who sit on the Open Land Use Subcommittee, and that's these 2 Bobs and Matt Fusco, who is our second oldest, or our second, whatever. He's been here the longest besides Bob. So, and he's not here today, but these 2 will give us a report. Thank you.
I'll start.
Go ahead, Bob.
So we've been going through this process for months and months, working up to this point, which was yesterday, to actually vote on, we moved these projects all forward unanimously. Last meeting, this meeting, we actually came up with the amounts and voted on them. We approved 9 out of the 11 projects that applied to the fund. I'll get to the other 2 in a minute. I just want to read real quick, no details, but if anybody has questions on them, you can stop me. We approved the Asheville Greenworks Friends of Pomini Creek proposal, Greenway Trail Improvement, Walston Gardens, 33 acres on Sand Hill Road, Camp Greer Works Community Forest development, that was $675,000. Just FYI, I couldn't remember when I was talking to you. We approved the Hawk Creek Community Association, $102,182. River Lake, Gateway Park, $200,000. Southern Appalachian Highlands Conservancy, Deep Review Mountain, $1 million. And if they had not gotten that $1 million, the land wouldn't have been protected. That was had to happen. So But these were unanimous votes, all of them actually. Town of Black Mountain Ridge Crest Connector, which involves greenways and connecting to even an aging equity issue, I would say, older people that have lived there for generations but they don't have the high income of these people moving into the area, and it would help connect them to. I won't go into detail. There's lots of that. Also schools. It was a good project. And Warren Wilson College, improving public access and giving for free for decades, and now they deserve some money to improve their trails. Did I get them all? Town of Woodman Riverside Park improvement. Yeah, the Taylor Way is involved and all that. This would help improve their trails and parks they had and have been in disrepair. I think I've got everything. Yeah, that's everything. Now, the two that we held back on were the Friends and Neighbors of Swananoa Woodman Trailhead Educational Park, mainly because there were some things that hadn't been decided yet, and the staff needs to know those. And it's complicated, so we just need more information on that. But we like the project. Everybody likes it, and so that one and the Town of Weaverville Watershed Trails Wildlife Reserve, 309 acres, which is owned by the town. But they were planning a whole park and everything. There's some controversial issues of the parking area being put in my opinion, and there are many people the most dangerous place it could be at the top of the mountain on a very narrow road. There are alternatives being offered. The town started getting with the community finally, after the community was sort of blindsided, because they should have started talking to them from the start.
Right.
So we did tried to do a lot of outreach and repair, and they're now committed to having meetings with the public and facilitated meetings and having them involved in the design. It looks very good, but there's a lot of issues that haven't been decided yet. Somebody's offering to donate 40 acres for free to have a parking area in a less controversial park.
Wow.
And they're also asking for a buffer zone, so the trail isn't right behind landowners' property. It's reasonable. Anyway, I like the direction it's going in. We ended up not voting for any funding for those two because the staff felt they were high risk and we couldn't really do it, and not yet. But we're going to give a presentation. It'll be Matt and Kevin, who is our chair. One or two of them, they're gonna write a presentation to give to the county council, as we do with this board, and really make it clear that we really want these funds, and that all the money would be spent except for $4,108,173. We would like that funding held, not given to something else, but held for another round of looking at these, with these two projects being our priority, because we've done all this work, and they're almost there. So there may be money left over after that, by the way, and there might be other new projects we could fund for that. We want to spend all the money while we can, but we just don't want commissioners to take it and suddenly decide, oh, well, we'll do this with it, since it's sitting here. So we're going to try to make that case pretty strongly so that we can get those other two proposals on through.
So Bob and I may have been pulled into another year's service because of all this, but to add to what you're saying, there probably would be about $2 million left, even if the money is held for these two projects that we applied. So right now there's $4 million sitting there, which may or may not be used by these two projects. But in any case, it's open whether they'll reach out to the public again for another application process to spend what's left, or the commissioners may just find projects to spend it on. But we hope that we'll be involved in that process going forward.
Robert knows at our meetings, I was making a big noise about the town of Weaverville needs to talk to the local people. They weren't listening, and there was some NIMBYism there too, but still, they needed to be listened to, and I feel like making this such noise, I'm hoping that by doing that, I scared the town that, they might not fund us, but I'm really happy with the way this is evolved.
And the town manager quit.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
the town, they don't have a town manager, and the next highest person, I think.
He's the
is not
sheriff
like-
or the something.
So they really lacked, it was a county, it was a town council that was kind of saying, oh, let's go ahead with this park, and they don't know the details. Staff and county managers or city managers
Yeah.
know. So
Well, it's not even within the town.
that's right.
It's not even within the township boundaries. It's in Buncombe County. And yeah, I mean, that's an issue we all have with the town of Weaverville people, because those of us who are out there in the old ETJ, yeah, sometimes that happens.
But anyway,
I'm glad you called.
commendations to them for finally getting it moving towards
Yeah.
the right direction.
Good, great.
So we spent 6 of the 10 million basically that we had allocated towards this. And Jess will be happy to know, I think I mentioned the two of them were near and dear to your heart. I think Beaverville, you and Warren Wilson.
Yeah, and just to clarify for everybody on the board, that Warren Wilson funding is not SHC requested, that's just Warren Wilson for their trail systems that they did independently.
That's great, yeah. So are you two comfortable with the auditing that they're doing on their money now? I know, a couple months ago you were a little concerned.
Yeah,
I think
Still
so.
have
Yeah,
those concerns.
Yeah, no, it was just, we were all surprised initially that originally the pot was 30 million and then the county commissioners spent about 10 or
Yeah,
something
yeah.
on projects before we had any chance to review any of that. And I think the money is spent wisely. We did our job.
Okay,
I think
good.
We did a great job. So.
Well,
I can't, the passive parks, I always get passive
Passive rec,
recreation park, passive park recreation committee, subcommittee. All the members did a good job, and the staff was really awesome.
Okay.
County staff.
Okay.
And very good, giving all kinds of support and advice without dictating to us.
Yeah.
But I think it was best.
Where did that land? Where did that committee, who does it, what organization is heading the old Jill Carter subcommittee? And that's key.
It's part of Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec.
It's head by
Okay.
Rachel Sawyer, which is our director of strategic partnerships.
That's right.
Okay, all right. Okay,
I think we should say Matt Fusco was part of that
Yeah.
subcommittee too. He's not here as part of the board, but you have Matt happens to be biking through Switzerland somewhere
Yeah,
south of Salzburg right
yeah.
now. Probably in the rain. You see the weather there?
yeah,
You're seeing cloudy.
yeah, he told me he wasn't gonna do it. Well,
He's on bicycle right now.
Yeah, I think the two Bobs and Matt have probably put more time and energy into that subcommittee than on LCAB, because they're watching out for our best interests, and this group and Ariel and Avni have really done such a good job of getting stuff on the straight and narrow for us, that now we have a new committee that, even though they had a direction, it was like there was like cats in a room, and so these guys are going, wait a minute, this is not what we're used to. So it's all good. It really is all good. So
I'm
thank you.
excited because this fund gave a chance to, with all the big pieces of lands, the land trust we've been protecting.
Yep.
Some involved in just even saving stuff, getting state for big tracts back years ago, like Lake Logan, and
Yeah.
it's working to get all these big areas saved. But this is protecting, these are small projects locally, greenways, things that never get money, and so the bond has been really good for trying to capture some of those,
Right.
so that's exciting.
Well, and Riverlink kind of was started it. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's right.
when Karen Tragnolan, the head of Riverlink, whatever she had to file so that you could be certified to hold property, you were picking up those little kind of things along the river that nobody wanted, that were full of tires and concrete, and that was a good way to start. So good. Okay, any questions for anybody? Okay, so announcements and discussions. Let's talk about.
We have this, presentation. We still have this.
Oh, okay, yes,
But
presentation.
I wanted to check
Yeah,
in,
go,
see how everyone's doing on time.
Yep.
I know usually we end at 9, but this will
We got a little
push
bit
us
later
past.
start. Yeah, yeah.
If we're okay with that, then I will go ahead.
Yes.
So the idea behind this is that last month we did an onboarding meeting with some of our new board members, and we put together a handbook and a presentation to walk through just some of the basics around this board. So we thought after we did that, we were like, oh, wouldn't it be nice? Maybe we should do a refresher with our existing board members.
Yes.
And just have, and if folks have not picked one up yet, for all the existing board members, we have a handbook over there. And so this is handy if, you need to flip through, reference something if you're evaluating a project, or if you need, just some basic info. I would like at some point, I'm not sure if we put in board member contact, but maybe that's, I'm not sure. Nancy, you would figure that out ours.
Yeah, this is just email.
Yes, so that's so anyway, I will proceed, and please feel free to ask questions as they come up. Just have this kind of a discussion, and then we can ask more questions at the end if they come up. But I'll
Ariel, real quick.
Yeah.
This is what you went through with us, right?
It is a modified version. You guys got more in depth because, so this, yeah, but yeah.
Keep going, I'll be back in about 3 minutes.
Okay, sounds good. So this, we're just giving kind of a brief overview. I was not here when LCAB was started, so some of the history behind why it was created as a board is a little fuzzy on my side, but essentially it was to provide voluntary land conservation easements to preserve Buncombe County, the beauty of Buncombe County. So in one of your initial documents, the county listed these 7 classifications as the high priority for the county, for LCAB. So, variety of different priorities here. And then wanting to make sure that everyone understands where it lives within the county now. So previously, LCAB lived within the planning department. Planning department was provided a staff point people for the board, but now a couple years ago, 3 years ago, we transitioned LCAB to live in Buncombe County Ag and Land Resources. So Ag and Land Resources exists with 2 different departments, our Extension Service and our Soil and Water Conservation District. So Upney and I are with the Soil and Water District, and Soil and Water has 3 different boards that we work with. We have our supervisory board, which is our Buncombe County Soil and Water Board of Supervisors, and then our program, the Farmland Preservation Program, is overseen by the Agricultural Advisory Board. So that is just a board that makes recommendations to the commissioners for county-held easements held by the Soil and Water District. Now, LCAB is now within our wheelhouse, and as you all know, you're making recommendations to the commissioners for land trust conservation easement projects. And not always ag-related, I'll say, because I just wanted to make sure that that was a piece, because you're in the Ag and Land Resources Department, it doesn't necessarily have to be ag-related. All right, so board member requirements. The board previously was made up of a higher number of members, but now since we've done a resolution a couple years ago to sort out a few logistics, the board is now comprised of 9 county residents appointed by the commissioners. Every board member now has a 3-year term, and you're allowed to have 2 consecutive terms. After those 2 terms, you would have to rotate off the board for at least a year to return. So definitely, folks that may leave in the next year, you are always welcome to come back. You just have to be off for a year. All right, so I'm going to say a couple of years ago, the board voted to have your meetings virtually. This month is an exception because we discussed it and decided it would be nice to have an in-person meeting. But Our standard board meeting is virtual. We have the ability to meet in person. The board just would have to make a vote to make that permanent change, and we change the details of the county. So one thing that is required by having a virtual board meeting is that the public has to be able to join virtually or in person. So every third Wednesday, Upney and I sit in one of these conference rooms and stream the meeting in case somebody who doesn't have access to a computer wanted to come and watch the meeting. So, so that's just a piece of the requirement to have a virtual meeting. Every January, we vote on our annual calendar of meeting dates, and typically in the past few years, the board has not met in July or December. Obviously, the board can make that change if you want to start meeting in those months, but that's the plan as of now. If we want to have a special meeting, there's just a variety of requirements that staff have to make before being able to have that meeting. You have to advertise it to the public, and it has to be advertised at least 48 hours in advance. But that is an option, and we have done that in the most recent times for getting projects approved by the end of the budget. 9 members on the board. We have to have at least 5 to make a quorum. This is important because I know it's fun to meet outside of the board meetings, but you technically are not allowed to meet with any, with 5 members outside of the board meeting. So if you want to have parties outside, you can have 4 and 4. Otherwise, it is a public meeting, and then minutes have to be taken, and it has to be posted. All right, so general board responsibilities. The LCAB's responsibility is to review conservation easement projects presented to you and to make recommendations for funding to the county commissioners. And also to advise the county on a variety of different topics. So this was included in our most recent update to the resolution, or updated resolution. All right, board member responsibilities. So you are appointed by the commissioners to make recommendations to the commissioners. So technically, when we vote here, it is not a project. It's a project once the commissioners approve it. So that's something that sometimes people, don't quite understand. We're simply an advisory board making recommendations. So
if I might add, I didn't make that clear, but same with our subcommittee. The things we voted on yesterday, we are advising the council, but they're the ones that are going to make the decision.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, I mean, the hope is that as the commissioners appoint you as a board member, and they have these advisory boards, that they, obviously, they see you as the experts. They see that you're vetting through, all of your evaluation processes. And so, when they see their recommendations, it should be kind of a no-brainer for them to approve it. But that's just an important piece to remember. Also, this kind of came up a couple months ago when we were discussing some concerns. If you as board members have concerns about a county decision, you have the ability as a member of the public and as a board member to reach out either to department directors or to the commissioners directly to share those concerns. So that's just kind of generally making sure we understand that as staff we can't bring concerns straight to those folks. We're just simply the administrative piece. Also, if you have any questions, we mentioned we have a handbook, we have packets, all the bylaws. Please reach out, look at the packet, look at the shared folder. Welcome to reach out to a fellow board member. This is more for newer board members. So, and also if it's project specific, please always feel free to reach out to that land trust point person. All right, so wanting to make sure we're clear on what as staff we're able to do. Our primary job is obviously to manage our farmland preservation program, and secondarily, we're able to provide assistance to our conservation board. So we're doing minute taking, we're organizing your board meetings, we're compiling agendas, making sure that any actions taken here are in compliance with county requirements. We're talking with our our clerk to the board at the county level and ensuring you guys have information on your term requirements or when they expire, coordinating budget requests with our land trusts, any general questions. But what we can't do, I mentioned this in the last couple slides, was we are not allowed to directly talk to commissioners about projects or about much at all. We are not soliciting landowners for projects, yeah, we can't really relay any board member concerns straight up to management. That, as board members, is you're able to do that. We recently created a shared online folder to make sure that you had access to all these materials as we evaluate projects. So we have a variety of stuff in that folder. As you request, any additional documents, we'll throw them in the folder. And the hope is that that helps you have your resources that you need to evaluate and review projects, and you won't be waiting around necessarily on us to follow up on that. We'll also be putting in Zoom link information in that, so if there's ever a time you get kicked off the Zoom meeting and you're like, where's the login, or where's the link, you can kind of go in there. And we have a copy of the handbook. All right, some folks get confused about the difference in these two boards, and kind of already went over this, but I wanted to be, kind of drill this in. Ag Advisory Board is also made up of 9 county residents. There is a requirement in that board that at least 5 have to be actively engaged in farming. And we have a regional representation. We've broken the county into 4 quadrants, and we have to have a board member representing each of those regions. We do not have that regional requirement on LCAB or member requirement either. Okay, so Ag Advisory mentioned farmland easements held by the county, and they're also seen as the board that makes recommendations on any agricultural issues or concerns to the commissioners. So if you, while you're out in the community, hear concerns in an ag sense, you're always welcome to relay those to an Ag Advisory Board member, and they'll kind of shoot it up the chain. And then, like we already mentioned, we have a much broader focus area in LCAB. So you guys are funding a lot more of a variety of projects than we focus on in Ag Advisory. So really, that's just a farm and forest land focus where LCAB has a wide variety. I also want to make sure that we emphasize that all of our partners that we work with in LCAB, specifically land trust partners, I want to make sure that everyone realizes how valuable they are and how helpful it is for the county to be able to spread county funding and maximize land protection. We're not just funding their projects, but we're also leveraging their staff power, their additional funds that they're matching to these projects, and it's helping us reach our 20% of Buncombe County by 2030 goal. So that's hugely important. I try to share that with everybody because I think that by having both boards, we're able to make huge impacts on conservation that other counties are not. All right, so this is just a brief overview of our standard LCAB project approval process. So land trusts submit an application to staff, and we then put it into this LCAB folder. We email out to the board, letting you know, hey, the application's in the folder. We're gonna, at next week's board meeting, the land trust representative will give a presentation. So the board then has a chance to review the application prior to the meeting. The land trust rep gives a presentation at that meeting, and then between that meeting and the next month's meeting, we schedule a site visit for board members and the land trust representative to visit that site. Okay, so the hope is that at that site, board members are able to ask questions to the land trust rep, as well as potentially the landowner. You're able to see the property, put boots on the ground, and if there are any actual concerns, you're seeing them on the site. Then between those 2 meetings, the board members are filling out their online evaluation form. We, as staff, collect the evaluations, compile them, add them up, and then we're able to share them with you at the board meeting. Then the board at that meeting can share, any folks that actually went to the site visit, they can share their experience at the site visit. You know, have any additional questions for that, that land trust rep, and then the board will vote on the project. After the board has recommended the project, then the staff will do all the required paperwork to get it on the commissioner's agenda. And then depending on the type of funding that's requested, if it's standard budget allocation, then Avni or myself, we take it to the commissioner, we present it on behalf of the board. If it's bond funds requests, then we have to go as well as the land trust representative to make a presentation at that meeting. And then the commissioners approve it and it's woohoo, yay, we have funding.
Is it also like a threshold of the ask, then we participate as well?
Yes, so if it is, so typically we can, if it's just transaction costs, even if it's a couple projects, if the total request coming from LCAB is under 250,000, we can put it on the consent agenda at the commissioner. So that just means it's on the consent agenda. I don't know if you've watched the commissioners meeting, but that's like the first thing they do. They approve the consent agenda. Avni and I go, stand, wait, they approve it, and we're out of there. If it's over 250,000 total, and that could be, you know, we can compile an advisory request and LCAB request on the same budget amendment. Then we have to make a public presentation, and then that's when it becomes on the new business item of the agenda, and then you get to wait till the end of the meeting and do a presentation, and that is fun times. So
Especially when the fact.
yeah, yeah, just got to have that fun experience last year, so, or last fiscal year. All right, so just some general, this is rough estimates of what potential transaction cost amounts would be coming from, you know, one of these requests. So they can vary, like depending on the size of the project, depending on the complexity of the title work, if the property has been surveyed recently, all of these things can change. Like survey costs can go a lot higher than this depending on the situation. But sometimes I think this is a little bit, you know, just handy to know what, you know, a common cost would be, because these are some of the costs you'll see on these applications. All right, so here I'm sharing the two different evaluation systems that we currently have for LCAB. We have what we're calling our general project evaluation. So this is the standard evaluation we've been using for the past few years. It's a two-part evaluation. One, we ensure that the land trust partner that we are considering funding meets these criteria. You know, essentially, they have a good track record with following through our projects, and you know, and yeah, that's essentially what it is. Then the conservation value, we're really looking at all of these factors as we evaluate each of the property. And then most recently, I think this past winter or spring, we added a farmland project evaluation. We felt like the previous evaluation didn't really take into account some of the factors that we felt like were important in a farmland project. So we used the evaluation system that the county had already approved for the advisory board, and that now is an option to be used with LCAB. So essentially, an example, Jess brings a farmland project to the board. She can look at both of these evaluation systems and decide which, you know, which she would like to use. She doesn't have to use this system if it's a farmland project, because depending on the project, the general project evaluation system might work well, like if it has significant public benefit, or yeah, you should protection.
Yes, the Warren Wilson project is that we didn't present it as a farmland project just because it scored so well on the other measures.
Yeah. All right, and then kind of lastly, we now have bond funding. So the bond system that we use is, you know, similar. So we're using that standard evaluation system, same idea, you can use general project or farmland project. And then we have a bond flow chart that allows us to determine what funding source and the amount that the project is eligible for. So essentially this flow chart allows us to say, is the project eligible for bond funds, and what percentage, or, you know, are they able to request easement purchase or easement acquisition funds from the bond? So here's our handy dandy flow chart. You're not gonna be able to read it, of course, but this is just showing, we first look at our general ranking criteria, and then secondly, we look at the source and the amount, and showing that essentially this is looking through, okay, have you leveraged funds? Oh, have you at least tried to leverage funds, like Tom was mentioning? He did apply for ADFP funding, he was denied, so that would then push him over here to being eligible to request. So it's showing you've looked into other funding options, and maybe it wasn't eligible, or maybe it didn't get funded, now you can request for bond funds. So here, this is essentially that yellow box, but zoomed in. And the idea is that, okay, we're determining if a project is eligible for easement purchase. So we, as a board, decided, okay, we're gonna look into 4 different factors, and if a project meets at least 2 of these factors, then they can ask for easement purchase. So, is it in an LCAB priority region? Is it in, we should reword that to say, is it in a conservation focus area? That's what we're calling them now. But does the project have significant environmental or scenic importance? Is there significant recreational opportunities, water quality, or open space benefits? And then is it time sensitive? You know, is it elderly landowner, financial hardship, or seller development pressure? So if it meets at least 2 of those, then you're able to bring that request to LCAB for easement purchase, and then, you know, at every presentation that we bring a bond project to the commissioners, we're showing them this checklist so that they know that it's an eligible request. So then essentially you would then start that standard LCAB project approval process. All right, and this is an updated map. Ooh, it's not the updated map. Okay. We have a more updated map than this, but this is giving you, essentially, it's just, we've added Pisgah down here. But this is giving you our conservation focus areas, and with the overlay of our existing protected lands, and I believe fee simple lands on there too. And just reiterating that the commissioners in 2022 set this 20% of Buncombe County protected by 2030 goal. And we're in the process right now of working through the staff and the commissioners on setting that next 5-year goal. So we're starting up this strategic 2030 strategic plan. I think the hope is that in this winter, the commissioners will adopt that. But what is this next goal? Do we continue making sure that we hit the 20% goal by 2030? Or are we saying, let's set a goal of annual acreage that we'll protect? And that goal would cover, you know, both Ag Advisory Board and LCAB projects.
Ariel?
Yes.
That 20% is 20% of the total land in the county?
Correct.
So that already, in effect, counts all the federal land.
Yes, it does.
Reserve, et cetera. So
Yeah.
it's really not as impressive.
Oh no, it is, Dag. Oh my goodness. So when we started, it was
what percentage do you take out?
When we started to set our goal, I believe we were at 17.9%.
Yeah.
And we are like, we're getting close to hitting this goal. So that is thousands of acres that's been protected in only 3 or 4 years. But yes, it includes, so that's like, I'm not gonna throw out numbers, but we were in the like 79,000 acres when we started, and it'll be like 84,000-ish acres when we end. But that's just, so it's thousands of acres, way more impressive than any other region that is doing land conservation. We are just,
We're the top county.
That's good.
Yeah.
The number that would be useful would be take the county area, subtract out the federal area, and then say what percent of that.
Why?
I almost think what's more impressive is to look at this is an 8-year effective period for us to achieve this, right? And what percentage are we?
And we're at 2024 already.
Are we able to? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good way.
Yeah.
What I've been telling everybody is we need to do in the rest of the county what we've already done in Sandy Much.
Yeah, well, I'll say like, so we've been reporting acreage for the strategic plan for the last 4 years. And I think when we set the goal, we said, we needed to protect 650 acres a year. And when I say protect, I actually mean, we want to initiate the protection. So that's meaning we're allocating funding to these projects. They have not closed. So we still have like 3,000 acres of initiated projects that have not closed. So that's another thing to remember is we might have initiated enough funding to hit that 20% goal. These easements have not closed, and we know that easements can take 3 or 4 years or so to close. So, so our hope is that we absolutely will hit this goal by 2030, but we will hit it, you know, with actual closed acres rather than just initiated starting projects. But anyway, so we have surpassed the acreage goal of the 650 acre goal every year since we set it. So anyways, we're throwing out numbers. They may or may not seem impressive, but when you're doing 40, 60, 70 acre easements, you know, those are a lot of work for small acres, and to end up at the end of, you know, I guess 9 years protecting, you know, 4,000 or 5,000 acres as a team, I think it's
When you talk to the average public, when you say, if you say something as simple as LCAB, since we started, protected 14,000 acres or whatever, that's one of the best messages you can just give the public without getting so deep into everything. If they just, you know, hear that and say, oh, wow.
Yes.
That's a good positive message you want to get out.
Yeah.
Or add more, protected this many thousand acres.
Yeah, and I do have some of those. So on Friday, we're bringing this discussion to the Commissioner's Energy and Environment Subcommittee, which is essentially another subcommittee, but it's made of 3 commissioners sitting on that subcommittee, as well as some members at large, to discuss this next phase of goals. And so I actually have some of those updated numbers that I'm happy to share with you guys to show, okay, we've been protecting, we've been funding easements since 2005. And so it'll kind of show you, since 2005, we've protected this many acres, we've put this much, you know, county funds towards the acreage, but in the first 20 years, I think it was like, anyways, I'll show the numbers, I'm not gonna just love them out, but it shows you that as we've increased county funding, we've significantly increased our acreage. You know, we were kind of stable for a while, and so we were making great work, great progress, but obviously with increased support and funding, we make more. Yeah, already kind of mentioned this, and we were active to make sure that our conservation focus areas were included on our comprehensive plan that the county recently completed, and we're in conversation about the 2030 goals. So that's generally what we have, just making sure we push that. Also, anytime you as a board member have the chance to meet in a public meeting or, you know, engage in some of these, you know, community engagement sessions on these types of plans, that's, you know, part of your ability as a board member is to go to these kinds of meetings and push the board's, you know, goals. So, all right.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So what bond funds did you get? How much have you used or committed? And what's left for next year? Is it?
I shared a spreadsheet last month. I don't have it memorized, but I can try and find it and pull it back up. Stop sharing. That all of that has been communicated to the
Well, while you look for that, so to kind of recap, I mean, we only had like 45,000 to spend in previous years. Then it went up to 750. this year,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, because in the old days, our funding was general funding. I mean, there was no line item.
Right.
And then that changed about 5 years ago. And then it kind of, like Ariel said, we just kind of tooled along because there were other things happening in the county, and saving property and farms was not the biggest issue. And it's kind of like we stayed down in the weeds for a couple of years. And then we got the 750,000, which was, and I have to say, Terry Wells, being on the commission, has just pushed like mad, and she's our shining star. And then, of course, she pushed the bond issue. So that brought us all of a sudden.
This shows the timeline on the funding, just for, you're over, go ahead.
No, that's, but now this is including the ag board, and that's important, because ag board projects, now this is just my perception, are able to move faster than LCAB. I mean, LCAB, even John Ager will tell you, it took over 7 years to get Hickory Nut Gap Farm protected, and it had nothing to do with staff or the county. It had to do with the in relationships of his own family, because, and that's what happens here. So a lot of that money went to ag board projects.
Well, I don't, actually a lot of it went to, I can break out like the spreadsheet.
Okay, maybe that's.
But there's quite a lot went to LCAB as well.
Okay, we'll see.
But an important thing to note here is that in 2020, that's when we passed the strategic plan.
Yeah.
And in that year, they told us any budget expansion request had to be tied to a strategic plan goal. And because we had LCAB board members and Ag Advisory board members and land trust representatives really rallying support in these engagement sessions, we got that goal in the strategic plan. So when we had the goal, we were able to say, if you want to do more conservation, you want to hit this goal, we need to add of these positions. We were able to have more support at the county level for easements, and we need to increase our annual budget. And that's when it that with commissioner support bumped it up to that 750. And then being able, like on staff side and land trust side, it was our goals to try to allocate that full 750 every year. So we've been allocating that full 750 every year to proving the need. And in addition to that, that helped us show, hey, when we have more funding, we can do more work. And so that helped with the bond as well. So this kind of gives you a timeline of how it's progressing. It's progressed significantly.
One thing I want to mention too, in the early days, in the 2005, those days, there were a number of years where there was a lot of low-hanging fruit out there. There are a lot of projects that, for years, people had said, we really need to preserve this. And so in those early days, it wasn't just $60,000 a year. There were some times when we got a whole lot more money in a year to grab projects that we really needed to preserve. And then it kind of, then when the glow was off the pumpkin, so, then we started into this kind of like a phase where, like I say, we stayed below the surface a little bit. But yes, but now that we have a process and quality and benchmarks, and we're able to say, this is what's coming into us, this is what we're looking at, we can send stuff onto the commissioners that there's no doubt that it is worth it. And I'll tell you, that has to do a lot with the fact our input comes from our partners, because they do the hard work. They don't present stuff to us unless it's really good. So
I was going to add earlier when you were talking, Gail, that when we do these site visits, the land trust staff and county assistants, it's all been so well done that none of our site visits are wasted. In fact, they're like great hikes. And we've already decided looks like a great project, and that's just like, it gives you a piece of familiarity to go out and see the site you've been talking about. It puts a level of comfort in your brain and gives you more incentive to, let's get this thing approved. We aren't able to everybody go, but we have a big enough board that usually 1 to 3 people can go on these site visits, so we get a good report from those people back at the next meeting on what they
It's
saw.
important for us board to be able to answer to the public. that
Yeah, exactly.
We have been there, somebody has seen it.
Right,
I think that's
And
important.
it's fun.
Yeah.
So don't turn it, if you can do it, do it.
Stag's involvement in Pisgah View, and in the Pisgah Ranch is so important because, he lives next door to it for one thing. But he is able to tell the public how important this is. And so I'm really glad you joined the board.
Well, let me make sure, is this correct? When I get local landowners who are interested in conservation, the first thing I think then I should do is get them in touch with either SHAC or Conserving Carolina. I don't think, Parkland Branch qualifies yet for River Link. But, to really get things going, it seems like, from what I hear, the first thing to do is get an interested landowner in touch with the right conservation agency.
And also aerial.
And also,
And aerial.
so, and Riverlink too. I mean, believe it or not, they reach out. They're not just Asheville centric, but I think that's true. But the fact that you planted the seed in their minds that there are ways to preserve the property without them losing ownership.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I hear, when I'm out with the farmers and landowners, it's like, no, they're taking my land away from me. No, they're not, unless you want them to,
That's why I think that, the meetings are gonna be so helpful.
That's, okay, yeah.
We have a mix, probably throughout the county, but certainly in our area, relatively new landowners, come in the last 30 or 40 years, like myself.
Right.
And then people own the land since 1800.
Yeah.
And particularly that latter group, they want to see the land preserved, but they're also very suspicious.
That's right, yeah. Well, are there any more questions for Ariel for the presentation?
Ariel, unfortunately, I have a hard stop, so I'm gonna have to leave. I have a quick ministerial question.
Yeah.
So notwithstanding the fact that the meetings are Zoom, what if we're available and we want to attend in person? Is that prohibited or is that just fine?
That's fine, yeah.
To come out here.
We'll be out here because we have to stream it anyways.
Right.
So, yeah, absolutely. And then, in terms of changing it from Zoom to in person, permanently, that's the board would be, you guys would discuss that on the board. But yeah, we're always here, usually in the room next door, and always welcome.
Okay. Good.
I have the hop.
All right, thanks, Bruce.
Okay.
Welcome.
Bruce, welcome. Yeah.
Learned a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, the other thing that I wanted to mention so that we can move on is, and Stag brought it up, is Stag has been pushing very hard, and it's good to get back out in the public again. And we used to do this pretty regularly back in I'm going to say the old days, but we had a presentation, and Christy Miller and I used to trot around and give this thing, and but now that we've got this staff that's just awesome, we can go into areas like into Stag's backyard, and we can talk to people directly and give them a presentation that is to just get rid of their fear. And the big thing is that the government doesn't reach out like your thing said. It's the people, it's the property owners that have to come to us. And I don't care who they come to. If they come to me, I'll steer them in some direction. But there is still that overwhelming fear. This is my land since 1800, and no one's going to take it away from me. But oh my gosh, I don't want it to be a subdivision. And that's still here in the county. So getting out into we're talking about January. Yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
So we talked a bit about having one out in the Candler community in January. Talked with Angelica, she's with our Cape department. She said it was best to wait till after the election, and then you have the holidays,
Yeah.
so if we wanna have good attendance, January's probably a better idea. Plus it's the off season, if they're active farmers, they have more time to meet. So our, that's kind of our next steps is to plan. Sounds like you have a couple locations for, potentially the fire station and then a bakery, is that right?
Well, there's, it's a former church.
It's the church,
Really
yeah.
across
Yeah.
the street that has now been acquired by, Budgie's Bakery, which are two Warren Wilson graduates.
Okay,
And
gotcha.
that's sort of becoming a de facto community center, which we don't have out there, which we need.
And it can hold a good number of folks?
Yeah, it's a former church.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah,
Also
That's where
using-
like Terry, actually both Terry and Bruce have had meetings out there, you know, public as part of their campaign.
Gotcha. Yeah,
The fire station is also, the Upper Hominy Fire Station is also being used as an early voting place this year in their community room. And so we're starting to kind of, use those large rooms too, so that's also an option.
yes, yeah. So that works great for us, and then we're just, talking with, you guys serve that area, right, or no?
We have a one-off easement there.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, you know, all folks are welcome to join for the presentation, but
yeah.
we'll kind of, figure out a few dates, that works. Does that sound good, Jess? And then get it back to Stag, and then Stag, you can communicate with the budgie folks? Does that
Yeah,
work? Okay.
yeah. And the other thing, if you could circulate one of those former presentations, just to the group, I think that'd be great. You know, so we can.
One of the old ones?
Oh, one of the
You did
fancies?
one not long ago, right? You did one a few years ago.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, of a few years ago.
And we have some slides that we've done.
Yeah, well, yeah,
presentations
there,
together.
yeah. There's a
Yeah,
bunch of one, I mean, I think Conserve Carolina, I think we've all got different flavors and so, you know, the one that Christy and I and Karen Craig Nolan and Meredith put together a million years ago, that one served its purpose very well, but it's very general, it's very, you know, it's like land conservation 101, and so it doesn't go into a lot of detail. So anyway.
Yeah, I think that, the other piece that comes to my mind is that, and, kind of toying back and forth with this, I want to increase awareness and communication and get folks thinking about it. I also don't want them to, and maybe it's just how we present it, I don't want to get people's hopes up that, because I know that Jess had this several years booked with projects. We're a couple, you know, we have projects lined up. And so I think it's maybe just part of us in our communication of being like, you know, we're clearing up some misconceptions, giving basic information, giving, you know, like being a contact that they recognize and can ask questions with, and getting them on our waiting list. And they know that like it might be several years down the road. So like that, sometimes I struggle with, why don't get their hopes up and then crush their hopes and then they have to wait 5 years. But maybe this is how we have to start to, you know, get the balls rolling in their mind thinking about it. So
It's like estate planning. It's something that you shouldn't put off. And I'll use the one up in Barnersville that I've worked on. We put that on the waiting list in 2013, and we closed last December. And that was, I mean, I kept going, don't die, don't die. Don't die. So, you know, and it is, it's a long process, depending on where your funding comes from, and, you know, unless you've got a rich aunt that can, you know, donate everything. So yes, and I think that's a very good point, that people shouldn't think this is gonna happen next year or next week. It's a start.
But I think also what you said, estate planning is key in the sense that what I think some of us in our valley are thinking about is, you know, leaving the land through your estate.
Right.
But then one thing that may need to get done near term is like a survey.
Yeah.
You know, because you may not want the house and the 5 acres around the house to go to conservation, but all the highland should go to conservation.
But those are the kind of things that questions that people have to, and they've got, and the intergenerational working, that's the thing that we always press too, is that this gives you a chance to sit down with your siblings and your kids, and your parents, and say, what do we want for this land? And, some will say, give me the money and I'm going to, Tahiti. And others will say, no, I want to be here for the rest of my life and my children's life. So, but good, that's what gets people moving. And that's what I've seen. It's just, it's really important.
You're making me laugh. I think the reason we have this Dubuque State Park is because Max Senior did not do that with his 4 kids.
Yes,
They
that's,
fought for 15 years
Yep.
because they were in such a disagreement.
yes,
And it came very close to being, well, 2 of them, it would have become a golf course.
yeah, and golf course
And it
development,
would've been
yeah.
Part of Canyon Labs, but we had the 2007 crash.
Yep.
Unfortunately, David Cogburn got brilliant notion to
Yep.
sell it to the state.
I remember,
That's what we say,
yeah.
protecting it for your kids or from your kids.
Right. That's, yeah. Because I remember driving very early in my time on this board, driving with Steve Cogburn out to that property. And, I was not sufficiently trained to know the kind of things that we know now. And I was saying to him, I'm sure you want to conserve this land. And he was like humming and hawing because, he couldn't say, no one in our family agrees. And so we have to work this out. It's an intergenerational issue. And I thought, now I understand. So, yeah. Okay, and we, after the meeting in January out in Stag's backyard, please, in the meantime, if you find other people in your communities who are going to be interested in this, let us know, because we've got to start planning ahead. And I think the idea of just education, not going out and beating the bushes for projects, but just education is something we can really we can look at for next year.
And I also think that even though it will be held in your community, we blast it out
Yes.
to all folks
Yeah.
interested in it.
Yeah.
And we also encourage potentially for some funding to be able to fund food for these kinds of events. So it could be, it could be that we decide to have a dinner. That's having food helps.
Oh, yeah.
Having it in the evenings when the work is over, or that kind of thing. So we want to be strategic in how we hold it, and and really blast it out that it's open to anybody. So.
Okay. Anything else before we get out of here? Yeah.
Yeah, and when y'all did that for the farm,
Well,
Friends of Ag breakfast.
yeah, the egg breakfasts and then our donor dinners. Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Just a question, I forget, was there a discussion of having another in-person meeting sometime down the road, or?
We kind of discussed this last month and kind of I'm thinking maybe once a quarter or twice a year, something like that. But I'll throw something out to y'all and see. But this is great, except, it's like the traffic. Stag and I both, from either side of the county.
The 8 o'clock time is hard.
Well,
Yeah.
it's hard.
For kids who
Yeah.
have kids.
Yeah.
So I mean, it could be if you decide to meet in person again at 9 o'clock, or it's something along those lines that helps.
Yeah, well, yeah, and also I think the composition of the board has changed enough that, a lot of us don't work in downtown Asheville like Greg and Albert did, where, Albert would come in his suit and his tie with his books, and boy, we started at 8 and we were done at 9 and come hell or high water. And because he had to get into court, and so maybe now we can change that a little bit. Okay, motion to adjourn Stag, okay, second? Second, Lang, okay.